So there's a few more bells and whistles you can install. One of them was the thing I mentioned earlier, the request table. It's basically the fancier version of this pipe. It has the same interface as the pipe for requesting items, but a few more features, and it also has a crafting grid over here. So if I want to craft, let's say, a redstone block, I can request a stack of redstone. It goes into this crafting inventory over here. I can draw the pattern here, and then I can just craft, and it uses the items in this inventory grid here in order to do that crafting. Also, these buttons up here, so this X will clear the whatever you have in the recipe up here. This tilde will request items from your system in order to complete whatever recipes in this crafting grid here. So I only have 1 redstone in my crafting inventory. I need 8 more to make a redstone block, so if I click the tilde, it requests 8 from the system. Now I have 9, now I can craft a block, and you can stick them in the sort thing here. It just shoves them back in the system and auto-sorts them back into the drawers. And you can also increase the quantities here, and this here can also be populated by the NEI interface. So let's say we wanted to craft an anvil. You can go to the anvil recipe, click the question mark, it'll auto-populate this, and then you can request the items, it'll put them in there, and then you just craft an anvil. There you go, there's an anvil. This interface here, when you first open up this table, you might not see the NEI interface, and that's because you need to go into your options and set your video settings to change your GUI scale or GUI scale, graphical user interface. It'll probably be on auto to start with, and that just stretches everything to be enormous, and there's not enough room to display both interfaces on the screen. So you just go back in here to the options, set this to something smaller. Even just large is probably small enough. But you might have to mess with it depending on your resolution to get the interface to show up. And if you shrink it more, it'll show a larger NEI interface that has even more items available to see at once. So the other thing that you can do to add more bells and whistles is, and get rid of this request pipe, you can add logistics crafting tables and logistics crafting pipes that will auto-craft recipes that you program into them. So in this one, for example, these are just phantom items. These aren't real items. You can click them out and they just disappear. But if you take like some oak wood planks, you can drag them in here, and these are just phantom items, and it'll populate that with a recipe. And then you can use the wrench here on the crafting pipe, and this will be empty to start with. You can click import, and it'll just grab the recipe from that adjacent block. Or you can manually put it in by, clicking the planks in and clicking a chest in here for the output to teach it manually if something doesn't work with the import for you. And then when you go in here, you'll see if I search for chest, I don't actually have any chests in my system, but I've taught the system how to make a chest, and I have the ingredients for the chest in my system, the oak wood planks. I have a bunch of them in there. So if I request a chest, it'll send the items over to that crafting bench and then just make me a chest. And then I'll just delete it over here so it's not still in the system. And you can expand this to do multiple step crafting. So down here I've put in a recipe for a hopper. So you just do the same thing, you put in the recipe here, get your wrench, import it, and then when I go in here, you'll see I don't have any chests or any hoppers in the system. But if I request a hopper, it'll automatically I have the materials for the chest, so it'll automatically craft the chest, and then it'll automatically craft the hopper. And you can do this with like large quantities. So let's say I request 20. I don't have enough oak wood planks to make enough chests to make 20 hoppers. So when I hit that, you'll see down here in the bottom left corner, it tells me what I'm missing for that. So if I went out and farmed up a bunch more oak wood and then shoved those into my system here, or through my ender pouch, then I can go ahead and request those same 20. Let me just request less. Let's do 10. I guess I need a lot of oak wood. Okay, that should be enough. Okay, we have 450. So, let's request 10 of these hoppers now. And you can see here in this little interface the crafting process, and you can also watch the items flying around through the logistics pipe. So it actually looks really cool if you build a big logistics system to see all the items coming from their different sources and destinations and everything. Yeah, so that's how you can auto craft. You probably don't want to make a massive system of that though, because the applied energistics auto crafting system is a lot better at doing those things, and it does it in a more refined way that's more compact and everything. And this logistics system, if you make it really crazy and you're not really careful about what you do, you can cause a lot of server lag, or even if you're playing by yourself, you can cause a lot of lag in your world. So I would recommend you can make 20 to 50, maybe even 100 of these crafting tables. But if you're getting to that point, you really need to look at upgrading to applied energistics, because you're going to start causing lag, and if you're getting that complicated with your crafting recipes and that many iterations of steps, you need to switch over to that more refined system. That kind of covers all the bells and whistles that you would want to install. There's as far as crafting this request table here, you need to use the soldering station to do that. So it's a very simple thing to craft, just like the power junction was. It's just some redstone and iron and a crafting table. But the recipe for the actual unit on the front there is a little more complicated. So you need a few pipes. These are just basic vanilla stuff, and then you need some of these chipsets. So you make those over here with the laser assembly table. And then when you come over here to the soldering station, you need to connect it to the logistics power, so it has to have logistics pipes connected to it. And then you just put the recipe in here like a normal crafting table, and then you put an iron ingot in here, and if it's powered, it'll just craft the item. That's like your solder, like you're soldering in real life or whatever, the solder wire. And that'll give you your request table that you can go shove on there on the front. So, you know, if we were to install it on this system over here, it would just go where our pipe was before. And it's already hooked up and working, so, you know, I can request 10 of these iron blocks. They just show up right here. There we go. So this over here is an alternative setup. It uses the same part in the back to do the remote ordering. It's just the provider pipe here connected to the drawer controller, and those can go on any face of the drawer controller. Basic logistics pipe with the default route set. This is a remote order with a linked up, that controller is linked to it, and then you have the Interchest Ender pouch setup. This is just using a different Ender energy conduit to transfer energy from whatever your power source is. Everything else is the same back here. But the stuff on the front, you can use this Ender IO inventory panel instead of the request table that we did over there from logistics pipes. A lot of people like Ender IO a lot because these conduits are amazing. They give you a ton of options for how you... So this is an item conduit. You can have it transmit on a bunch of different colored channels. So you can have like a bunch of, like one conduit's transmitting on the green line, another conduit's sending a different item on the brown line, and they can have different destinations and everything, but all connected on the same pipeline. And you have all these customization options for whether you want to input or extract items. You can use redstone control. There's even redstone conduit wiring that can go in the same block space as this. So this one here is set up with an item conduit and a fluid conduit in the same block. You can also add redstone and RF power within that same block and have all these wires in a really compact space with lots of options for how you transmit your stuff. But in order to set this up, you just need the inventory panel. You need some nutrient distillation fluid that's the power for this panel. It goes in this tank here, and this is just a storage tank that's holding that. And then you need the conduits. You need item conduit connecting the panel to the drawer controller. You need fluid conduit that brings the nutrient fluid in for power here. And then to configure this is just always extracting, ignoring redstone. It's pulling the liquid into here. This is always, if you go to the liquid tab over here on the side, it's always inserting that same liquid. And then you have the item conduit portion, that's this this first tab, and it's just always extracting. We put some speed upgrades in here so it pulls the items out faster whenever you input stuff in here in the return area. And it's just always extracting, ignoring redstone. This is in out. with the same color as the panel over here. And then you have to put the remote awareness upgrade in it. What the remote awareness upgrade does is it lets this panel see whatever inventory is connected to this conduit, which is the drawer controller. So it's kind of similar to the provider pipe in the logistics pipes. In order to craft all this stuff, though, it's a little bit more complicated, so I recommend just going through it in NEI and sort of drilling down through the different steps. So if you look up the inventory panel, it would take me quite a while to explain all the different steps, but you just look up the inventory panel, hit R on it, it shows you all the different things you need. You have these pulsating crystals, you have to make an alloy smelter to make those. You also use the alloy smelter to make several of the other ingredients that are used in this, like the solarium and some of the ingredients for the soul vial. But the gist of it is you need to use the alloy smelter to make several different alloys, and you need to make this interresonator by capturing a witch soul with a soul vial. You just like make the soul vial and go like right click on a witch, and it imprisons them in the soul vial. And then you can make this interresonator in this machine called a slice and splice. You have to go get an enderman head so you can make a cleaver with Tinker's Construct and go hack up some endermen. And then you use this recipe here. You actually have to put in like a regular vanilla iron axe and shears in here that are supposedly slicing up these ingredients to make your ender resonator. And then you combine that with the witch soul, and that imbues it into the sentient ender. Yeah, so you have to do all that stuff, and then these are more basic. And you also have to make the conduits, but it's very good to learn the Ender IO system because these conduits are very, very useful. So you're going to need to build a lot of those machines anyway, and also to get the nutrient distillation you'll have to make a vat. So if I just look that up real quick, it's pretty simple to make. All this stuff is pretty straightforward when you just look through the recipes down to the basic components. But the nutrient fluid, once you have the vat constructed, you have to put pipe water into it. So you can just get like a tank and put a fluid pipe into the vat. And then you use raw meat. So rotten flesh is a good one, raw beef, stuff like that. Sugar is probably the easiest option for this component. So you put the meat and the sugar, and input the water and some RF power, and then that gives you the fluid that you can pipe out into this tank or directly into your inventory panel. And that basically just gives you the same thing, but through the Ender IO mod instead of logistics pipe. So it's just an interface where you have a crafting grid, a way to put back items, and a way to sort through your items and everything. And you can have it sync with NEI too here. So that pretty much covers it, and gives you access to a lot of really nice storage features from very early in the game. So that all sounded really complicated, but really it's just the drawers, the controller, and the way for the pipes to interface with the controller. So pretty basic. You can get it, you can make it as complex as you want. You can build all sorts of crazy pipe systems, and this, I think I mentioned this earlier, but this Interchest, Ender pouch system is fully upgradable into your ME system, so you can continue requesting items from your ME system later on, and it's just super convenient. So good luck and have fun.